now we're, let's see, 81 degrees, so not too terribly bad outside. Relative humidity is about 70%, so it's a little humid, a little hotter than yesterday. They say tomorrow will be our hottest day, and then next week we're going to cool down and probably head into our fall type weather. In any case, we're looking at 2 Chronicles 2 through 2 Chronicles 5. We're looking at 1 Kings 5 through 1 Kings 6. And these are in chronological Bible. These events are taking place either simultaneously or in conjunction with one another. And so we are looking at them together as much as we can. Solomon is off to a good start. He's taking care of his adversaries. He's got the support of the people, the support of David's other sons, with the exception of the one that he took care of. And we see then that Solomon begins to do what his father had asked him to do, which is to build the temple. David had been too much of a warrior, too much bloodshed, and God wasn't going to allow him to build the temple. Solomon has had all of the prep work done by King David. He's made arrangements for materials and workmen, and he's given Solomon all of the building instructions, and Solomon starts out to fulfill his father's wishes to build a temple. And the first step is to make a new contact with Hiram, the king of Tyre, and to make arrangements for the large logs that would be necessary of cedar and cypress, and to arrange the workers to help Hiram get that material to him. It's quite interesting to show you the organization skills of Solomon. He's got 30,000 men that will go in shifts of 10,000 men per month to go over and help with the logging industry. And he has also put together a workforce locally of 70,000 common laborers and 80,000 quarry workers. That's 150,000 workers. And he has 3,600 foremen. That gives you a 40-to-1 ratio. That's certainly a lot better than the ratios that we see on state and government work, where we see 5 supervisors for 3 workmen. But here we have foremen of 40-to-1. One foreman for every 40 workers. And we see also, as we look at the parallel passages, the need for gold and silver, and craftsmen for gold and silver. And so we find that being arranged as well. And if your mind is anything like my mind, you start to say, well, I wonder how this temple compares with the tabernacle, the portable place of worship that Moses had. And I started some work that I wish I hadn't started, because I had very few sources that came back with the same numbers. And so I'm going to show you some drawings. I'm going to show you, first of all, the original Moses tabernacle. We seem to have a better handle on that than we do anything after that. We know that it's approximately 150 feet by 75 feet by 15 feet high, and then it has a holy place which is approximately 30 feet by 15 by 15, and we after that have a hard time getting dimensions that seem to match up with Solomon's temple and then Herod's temple to follow. But the first temple is the Temple of Solomon, and it was destroyed in 607 BC. So when the Babylonian siege came on, we find that this was destroyed in 607 BC, before Christ. And Solomon's reign is around 900 BC. So then we had Herod, who decided he was going to build a new temple, and his temple is considerably larger than Solomon's temple, and we find that that temple was destroyed at AD 70, that is after Jesus. and was destroyed by the Romans. Now, to show you this comparison, I'm going to first show you the tabernacle. Again, approximately 150 by 75 by 15 feet high. And then we're going to look at Solomon's temple, which was larger than that by a pretty good margin, as you'll see in the later comparison. But now you can see Solomon's temple and the fact that it was considerably taller in the area of the holy place. And then we'll finally look at the comparison of Solomon's placed inside the outline of Herod's temple. You see Solomon's with a green line, and then you see the Herod's temple with the black lines, and you can see that's even larger still, probably approaching something like 600 by 300. And then finally a comparison of all of the temples, including Ezekiel's, and that compared with a U.S. football field, which is, of course, 100 yards long, and that would make it 300 feet long. And you can see the comparison as we look at the comparison of the temple of Herod, the temple of Solomon, the temple of Ezekiel, and the tabernacle of Moses. Now you say, well, what about Ezekiel's? I didn't know there was an Ezekiel. Was it in Jerusalem like the other two temples, and was it destroyed? No, it was never built. It was a vision of Ezekiel's, and those that want to try to interpret the vision of Ezekiel believe that this is a temple that will exist during the 1,000-year reign of Christ. So it's a temple yet to be built. And so I hope that looking at these different comparisons. The other thing that makes it very, very confusing and hard, as you can see, I've yellowed in these drawings the Holy of Holy places. You have the holy place, and then you have the Holy of Holies. That is the actual place where the priest would go in and offer sacrifices and incense, and so there you can see even the size of that from the original temple, from the original tabernacle, which was approximately 30 feet by 15 by 15, and that's 15 high. Went to almost double that size in Solomon's, and even larger yet probably in Herod's. And so you can see why it can get so confusing, because sometimes they're measuring the inside Holy of Holies, sometimes they're measuring the entire courtyard area, and sometimes they're taking measurements that have embellished outer size of the Holy of Holies and outer size of the temple with courtyards. So it becomes very, very confusing. So I hope these drawings will help you. If somebody asks you how big was any of these tabernacles or temples, the only one that seems to always consistently come back with the same kind of numbers are the 150 feet long by 75 feet wide, facing to the east, and 15 feet high, with the holy place being 30 by 15, and that's 30 feet long and 15 feet wide, and then 15 feet high, because remember it was an open air around the Holy of Holies. Only the Holy of Holies was closed in. All the rest was just a curtain around the courtyards. So I hope that takes care of that. To Hiram for the lumber, and we find that when we look at these parallel passages that there was a significant payment made for the lumber, obviously of great value, because there was 110 gallons of olive oil, there was 100 bushels of wheat. If we look at parallel passages, there was also 100,000 baskets of barley and 110,000 gallons of wine. So the payment for these timbers and cypress and the labor to get them to Jerusalem, significant, and I think we need to remember that the old phrase about nothing's too good for God is true to a point. and, but I can't help but to apply it to the fact that we serve a God that's not confined in any space. And we have served a God that we don't have to visit a tabernacle or a temple. Now, that's not to go against going to church. Obviously, I believe that the New Testament teaches clearly that we should not forsake the assembling of ourselves, and we should go to church. But aren't you glad that we can access God anywhere, anytime, any place? Aren't you? Aren't you glad that no matter where you are, no matter what your circumstances, you can access God, and not through a priest, but directly through the blood of Jesus Christ? I hope you remember that, and I hope you remember that we have a God that can't be confined to a space. It's nice to have a place to go and worship Him, but that place is just a place, and we can worship God any place. But it's nice to be with other believers worshiping in a church setting, and not be confined to a tabernacle, a temple, or a church building, but that we have free access to Him all the time. God bless you and have a great day.